I wanted to have a discussion today about religion and the meaning of what religion does in our society, for people in general. Anywhere you look, there's always a religious or spiritual impulse. You can't seem to get away from it in any society. We all try to, explain the meaning of life, and not just from a science perspective of how the nuts and bolts work, but what's the point of it all? What are we supposed to do in our day-to-day lives besides just eating and sleeping? What more is there to life? Is there more even? And I think everybody, as a society, speaking, different societies in different time periods and different ages, all agreed, well, there is more to it than just eating and sleeping. If that religious impulse is not expressed, it tends to come out really weird, is what I've noticed. And I think that's one of the problems with our current climate in the United States, is that a lot of people, they just have they're not satisfying that religious part of themselves, that soulful part of themselves. And that's why you get people rioting after Trump is elected, or all the craziness. Like you see the people supporting Hillary before the election, they seemed like, she was the second coming. That it was so important that she get elected. And then when the world didn't explode, when she was elected, they just can't seem to deal with that, a lot of people. And that's just insane. But that religious impulse that they might get satisfied in some sort of Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, just anything like those sorts of religions, that has to go somewhere, and it comes out all weird and bizarre. It's kind of like how people treat their pets as kids. So people don't have kids anymore. A lot of people don't. But they have pets, and they treat them like they're kids. I've had pets and kids. They're not the same thing. They're not remotely the same thing. And I think it's not good to confuse them. It's not like it's just in the same way. It's not good to say that God doesn't exist, and then go along your merry way. That's a void inside you that has to be filled in some capacity. And if it isn't, then you get weird. And I think it's good to say that in a larger societal context, without God of some sort, it gets murderous. And you look at communist countries, killed a lot of their own people, very atheistic, obviously in their design, and that's the result of a lot of people not believing in any God. And I do think it's important that, for our moral framework, we have to have some sort of reference point that we can all use. And what we all used to use in any society was stories. Our stories of our myths, of our heroes, of our villains, of difficult times. Those are the very important stories that we can talk about, and that we can even evolve if necessary, our morals and our behaviors as a society. But we have to have somewhere to start as a common base. And without those being taught anymore, namely here in the States it would be Christianity, we don't have that base to work off of. It's very hard to see each other and work out something. It's almost like trying to work out a deal in two different languages. One of you's blind, the other's deaf. It's just not going to happen. And I guess I could give a pertinent example, I think, of religious coming out as weird would be Sam Harris. He has been a vegan for around a year or so, and it's not gone well for him. But I would say that he didn't even do the research necessary to try to make the best of it for his health. And that's an example of his religious impulse trying to express itself. Because he's even said he didn't do it for any reasons other than he doesn't want animals to suffer. But even what he did is not clear that that's actually lowering any suffering. In fact, there's a good case to be made that veganism in particular increases the suffering in the world. And I would point you to Leah Keith. She did an excellent interview with several people actually, but I think Abel James did the best interview with her that I've seen, and points out a lot of those. She also has a book if you want it. The other point I'd like to make is that if you don't have God, What else do you have as your central, revolving axis about things to talk about? And I would actually substitute the word God for truth. If you don't have truth, what do we have to talk about? What can we do? Well, it's really just who can lie better, who can build a better illusion if there's no truth, right? Who can just persuade. And there's no moral agency to it if there's no truth. So, if there's no truth in the statement that soda is bad for you, well then it's perfectly moral to encourage people to drink soda, if that's not true. However, if that statement were to be true, it would actually be immoral to encourage people to drink lots of soda. Alright? I think that's pretty simple. So I think that's really where the religious divide comes down is, do you believe in truth? Is there actual truth in this world or not? If there isn't, that's a whole different train that takes you down. And if there is, then that's also a different train that takes you down. And I would argue any society that I think that we would deem good would be a truthful society, or trying to at least approach the truth as best we can. And I think that's where a lot of times religion gets a bad rap, because it was written by people that lived so long ago. A lot of the stories, the books, stuff like that we base it on, and they could only tell those stories in their context of what they had lived in their life. So a lot of them were very brutal and brutish, because it was a very brutal and brutish time until very recently. Life was extremely hard and filled with sufferings for so many people for so long that was also a reflection in religious cultures just in general. So I think we should take that into account when reading older religious books, or books of any sort, really, from a different time period. Those people had a very different experience than we do nowadays. And we should be a bit more humble when reading those, because they lived through things that we probably couldn't even imagine for 1 or 2 days having to live with. But that was their constant daily life. We should be humble and grateful that we have such a luxurious society nowadays, particularly in any modern Western country, that, the worst that happens in our day is maybe our car breaks down, maybe our Wi-Fi doesn't work, maybe our phone gets messed up. Those are the difficult things, but they don't really impact us in the long run. It's a few days, usually something happens, and then we can move along. For the most of us. There are, of course, still people that can still have a great deal of suffering in a modern society, and wouldn't deny that either, but it's certainly much fewer people than ever before. So I guess, though, if you want to reply in the comments, if you have anything additional to add. This was kind of rambly. I didn't really have anything in specific I wanted to say, but a lot of this has come up because of Jordan Peterson, and he's really brought a lot of the religious context back up, talking about it, trying to move beyond just dogma and just said that this was written 2,000 years ago, so we have to do this exactly, even if it was just a minor rule or something along those lines, and really looking at the broader implications of what we can learn from everyone that has come before us. And that's really the important part that I really don't get from a lot of, I guess I would say, modern, current people, is they just have no inclination to learn from the past. All the suffering, all the heartache, even all the joys and the victories that people in the past had, I'm grateful for that, and I want to learn from that. Hopefully there will never be a World War III, because we are smart enough now to avoid that. World War I, World War II. Killed a lot of people. Not good. We should learn it as a society from that, as a people, and not repeat those mistakes. Same thing with the communist USSR, Mao's China. We should learn from that. All those people that were killed by their own government. We should learn from that and build upon the knowledge, not just repeat the same mistakes of the past. And I do hope that you think about kind of what I've talked about today, and do add something down in the comments if you think you have something pertinent. This, like I said, it didn't really have much of a point, just that I wanted to, I guess I kind of felt with Peterson talking about it, and I myself I've always struggled a little bit with the religious side of the faith because I'm very much a science-oriented person, and I don't like the superstitions elements that get brought into religion. But I also notice that there are very good things in religion as well. Sense of community, and a lot of churches do a lot of good for a lot of people. They don't broadcast it. They really don't. But if you were to actually look into what individual churches do for people in their area, they do a lot. A lot of simple things, like doing food drives, coats, gloves in the winter for people. A lot of people just give up a little bit of their time and help take people from appointments, like doctor's appointments, like I mean, they do a lot, and I think that gets missed, that there are good elements to religion. Like anything that mankind has ever created, there's always going to be good and bad. But trying to just exercise religion completely, I think, would damage the society. And anywhere you look in history, you see where that's happened, again, as the communist countries. Not very good. Not good. But I also think that there has to be a little give on the other side, that just because a small rule may have been written down 2,000 years ago or even longer, maybe we need to interpret that rule. And I do think that's kind of like how our Constitution is built up. You know, we can add constitutional amendments. So if we decided that, again, we wanted to outlaw alcohol, we could do that. We could pass a constitutional amendment and outlaw alcohol, as was already done. Also, if that was a bad rule, we decide later on we can go back and repeal that and change it, as also yet again was done. And I kind of feel that's kind of like what the Catholic Church tries to do. They try to update the doctrine, the rules, the dogma, as time goes along. But they also try to maintain what is really important to maintain, because you can't just throw everything out and start over. That's ridiculous. That's like taking all of our knowledge of physics and saying, well, this one physics rule doesn't seem to work out too well, or we don't like it, so we're just going to junk everything and we're going to start physics all over again. That's just stupid. So I mean, there's no need to do that. But we do need to have a conversation and a talk about where we're going with these things. And some of these things may take 20, 50, 100 years to resolve. But I think it's well worth having the discussion to resolve, in the religious context, any problems that arise. I hope you all have a good day. We'll see you later.